I think that might be about 30 seconds. So I want to say hello and good evening to every single person who has firstly joined in for this webinar, so is coming on the call. I'm just going to let people come in. People are just coming in as we speak, so I'm just going to give a little bit of time to allow that process to happen. But welcome, welcome, welcome to the NEC election rally for the Grassroots Voice team. We'll be starting very, very soon. So welcome to this Grassroots Voice team election rally. The ballots will be dropping on Monday, so make sure that you fill yours in. We'll explain a little bit about the voting system in a little while, but we don't want to be a bit bureaucratic to start off with. We want to kind of talk about our politics, talk about our motivations for standing. We are also joined by some excellent speakers tonight. We also have Jeremy Corbyn, the former leader of the Labour Party, who will be joining us a little bit later to talk to us about why these NEC elections are so important and why we need to carry on the fight for socialism, because many of you, and I know we are having these elections in the middle of a global pandemic. These are extraordinary circumstances. People are feeling like a collective lull at the moment. People are struggling with the way this government are handling things, with the confusion over rules, with the separation from family, and all sorts of other things that have been caused by this virus and the government's political ideology and their incompetence. And we share in that with you. We hope our organising will be part of the recovery. So we are really glad you've tuned in. Thanks if you are on the webinar or if you're watching from any one of the many pages tonight. So just to let you know, the Grassroots Voice team are myself, Lara Pidcock, we've got Nadia, Jama, Henderson, Yasmine, Gemma, Bolton, and Mish, Rahman. We also have other candidates tonight that are standing for other positions, and I'm going to introduce those one by one. Our first speaker tonight to talk to us about this election, to talk to us about why it's important, why you really should try and get as many of your left friends, left comrades to take part in these NEC elections, is the wonderful Apsana Begum. She has already proven to be an absolute socialist champion in Parliament, standing firm already with her principles. She has proven to be a solid comrade. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. It is over to you.
Thank you so much, Laura, and greetings to everybody that's joined us this evening on what is a really important event to support our comrades who are standing for the NEC elections. I just want to start by saying that, we are, still in a global pandemic, and, people all over the country are being let down by the Conservative government's patchy support through the pandemic. These measures that are resulting in greater unfairness, greater injustice, and much more hardship. And we recognize the work that you do, because, despite all of this, all of you are continuing to work hard, whether that's in your homes, whether that's, in cramped conditions, balancing your paid work with your caring responsibilities, or being forced to work in unsafe conditions without, the adequate protections that are needed. And many of you are supporting many individuals in your communities unpaid. We know that mass unemployment looms. We're seeing lots of people being made redundant. We're seeing fire and rehire tactics disgracefully aimed at imposing less favourable conditions on people. Over and over again, the Conservative government is demonstrating a chilling disregard for people suffering. And, we know there's a broken economics behind it, and that's trapping people in low paid, insecure work. And so, all of you that are able to sort of join us this evening, you've taken time out of your busy schedules, well done to you. Well done for being part of something that is trying to change that status quo, that is trying to influence that broken economics and make sure that we have much more fairness, much more justice, and less hardship across the country. I want to say a little bit about, why these elections are so important. The NEC has influence over the Labour Party manifesto. They can influence what drawbacks there are going to be or what draw-ins there are going to be leading up to the next general election. And we've got to use all of the power of our movement, the power of people up and down this country to influence that. And the voices that we have on this brilliant JB6 slate is really, really important, because these are people who understand the experiences of the ordinary person up walking up and down the street. These are people who have, done a day's work in their life, not like here in Parliament, not like the entitled people here in Parliament that really don't understand what it's like to live, paycheck by paycheck, month by month. And I've spoken to so many of the candidates that are standing, and what really comes across to me is those real kind of working class voices, those voices that really are underrepresented in our politics, in Parliament, in our party. These are the voices that are really needing to be elevated in our party, and I'm really, really proud to know and support many of our comrades that are standing. I want to also just mention something. Look, I was elected in December last year, and I don't think it would have been possible without some changes that were brought about by socialists on the NEC. And one example of that is that my CLP was in special measures for about 20 years. So essentially, if somebody wanted to join the party, they'd have to give proof of address and prove their identity and wait probably up to 3 months to have their applications approved. And it put me off at one point, to complete that process. And it felt targeted. And learning about the fact that nobody seems to know why we were in special measures in the first place 20 years back. Nobody even knows the exact date in which we became, we were put under special measures. But up and down the country, we saw many CLPs in the same position, and so many of them, funnily enough, being CLPs where there's a high proportion of BAME members. And that disregard for members, that way of not ensuring that members have an equal voice, that Labour Party membership card, allows people to have a voice, but actually some members have more rights than others, was something that really needed to be challenged. And it was possible to challenge it in the last 5 years because we had socialists on the NEC that were willing and not afraid of the membership, but were willing to actually speak up for the membership. And that is what we need, on the NEC. And look, comrades, we know we've suffered defeats. We know we suffered defeats last year. We lost the general election. But look, we haven't lost everything yet. It's amazing. It's wonderful to see all the CLP nominations that we've gained, for these wonderful candidates. So, it's not all over yet. We've got a lot to fight for, and we should keep going. And, I was just thinking, today, I just want to end on this note really, which is that, we had the third reading of the, what is known as the Spy Cops bill. It was disappointing to see that, we weren't putting up effective opposition to that bill, and that, we need to be on a statutory footing to oppose it at later stages, or expect our colleagues in the Lords to do that job for us. I'm reminded of a quote from Audre Lorde, which was that, for the master's tools will never dismantle the master's house. They may allow us to beat him temporarily at his own game, but they will never enable us to bring about genuine change. These elections are so important to bring about change. We can't do it all here in Parliament, in these structures. Our voices are our movement, and it's all of you that can influence those decisions that are made that really impact on everyone's lives. We really need to support those candidates on the NEC. Thank you. Solidarity.
Apsana, thank you so much for your contribution. There are over 1,000 people watching now, so what I want you to do is, if you are seeing this on Facebook or another page, get hitting the share button, get hitting the like and share button, share, so as many Labour Party members can see this as possible. You can help us build our audience tonight. So far we've got somebody from Islington, Sheffield, Edinburgh. These are people on the webinar. Cornwall, Birmingham, High Peak, East Yorkshire. We're from all corners of the United Kingdom on this call tonight and on this rally in support of the Grassroots 6 candidates. Our next speaker, I'm going to go swiftly to. He is standing for the Welsh rep seat on the NEC. It is so great that he is here. It's Mick Antoniw. Over to you.
Comrades, it's great to be able to join this rally. Welcome to you all from Wales. I'm standing for the Welsh seat, the first time we've had a Welsh seat, and the reason we have it is because when we elected Mark Drakeford as the First Minister in Wales, the seat that I have, appointed by Mark on the National Executive Committee, we decided had to be one that was accountable to the members. So this is the first time this seat has come forward and is accountable to the members and the trade unions. So that's why I'm standing this time. We have a Labour government in Wales and we are pursuing socialist policies in Wales, and it shows what we can actually achieve when we have a Labour government. We have Senedd, Welsh Parliament elections in May 2021, and it is important that Labour wins those elections because it is a stepping stone to achieving a socialist Labour government at the next general election. Now, what have we done within Wales? Well, I'll tell you a few of the things that we've done. We abolished the right to buy. When the Tories introduced anti-trade union legislation, we introduced our own legislation to revoke it. We've abolished 0 hours contracts for carers. We've introduced free school meals for children during holidays. We have an NHS that is free from Tory privatisation. When the Tories abolished protection for agricultural workers, we introduced our own law to restore wages protection for those workers. We have introduced, or we are introducing, a Social Partnership Act to establish ethical standards of employment, so that if employers want part of the 6 billion procurement we give out each year, then they will have to show ethical standards of employment, and that includes things like collective bargaining and trade union membership. We are planning to introduce a plastics tax, and we are planning to introduce a vacant land tax. We have taken our airport into public ownership, and now that transport has been devolved, we have established a not-for-profit Transport for Wales company to run our transport system and to regulate that. The reason I mention these things is because there are many things we want to do that we cannot do until we have a Labour government in Westminster. So we pursue our socialist policies, we pursue our powers to the full extent that we can to introduce socialist policies, but we actually need to have a National Executive Committee that is committed to supporting those socialist policies that we all agreed at our Labour Party conference a little while back. And it's very important that we also recognise the gains that we have made. We are no longer the top-down party that we once were. We are now a party that has a democratic conference where members directly choose and select the policies that we need. And look at those fantastic policies on employment, on the green economy, and in housing, and in so many other areas that it's important in terms of our fight against austerity and inequality. So don't let anyone say these NEC elections are not important. They are vital. I intend to win this seat on the NEC for socialist policies in Wales. And I thank you all for attending, and I hope you all vote and participate. Thank you very much, comrades.
Mick Antoniw, thank you so much. I'm going to keep repeating people's names. So when that ballot paper drops in your email account, you are going to recognise the names for the left team to stand. I'm going to go straight next to the first of our Grassroots Voice team speakers. Just to let you know, the Grassroots Voice team have done a brilliant thing. We've managed to get one left team who are working together to make sure that we maximise the number of left candidates that make it on to the NEC. The next speaker is Gemma Bolton. She'll be the first of the team that you hear. Welcome, Gemma.
Hello, comrades. Hello. Thank you so much for so many of you for joining us this evening. I joined the party aged 17 because I was inspired by Labour's message of hope for my generation. Hope for a livable planet, for an equal and tolerant society, a system where public good is put before business profit. And I'm standing for Labour's NEC to fight for a party that continues to inspire hope for a better way of living, a better society for my generation, for your generations, and for generations to come. A Labour government must have the vision and the power and the will to take on the powerful, not to accommodate them. That's what it'll take if we're going to secure a Green New Deal to tackle the climate emergency, public ownership of key utilities and all public services, the repeal of anti-trade union laws, opposition to austerity, if we're to stand for anti-racism, liberation and equality, if we're to promote ethical foreign policy that's based on peace and not war. This is my hope for the future of our society, and the party has to maintain the incredible policies of the last few years, so popular with Labour members and with voters. A Labour Party that seeks to lead must be clear that Black lives matter and that policing and justice needs to change. We must oppose the idea that migrants are the cause of society's ills, making the case that it's bosses and not migrants that drive down wages. Members have to be at the heart of our party. Members have to be engaged in decision making. We have to be able to hold those in elected positions to account. Far too often in the Labour Party, members have been sidelined and our voices get suppressed by leadership that's keen to just run roughshod over those that they should instead be accountable to. So whilst all this did begin to change under Jeremy's leadership, there is still so much further we have to go. And so that is why the Grassroots Voice team will always be vocal campaigners for a member-led democracy. This includes defending conference as our party's sovereign body. It includes open selections for all Labour public office holders. It includes the right for constituencies to select their own parliamentary candidates. No ifs, no buts. And we have the experience to deliver for Labour's grassroots, with Yas and Anne, current officers of the NEC, representing us on a daily basis. Nadia is a grassroots All Grieve Truth and Justice campaigner and local Sheffield activist. Mish, who's chair of the CLP and on the Momentum NCG, and Laura, who's represented our movement in Parliament and as a shadow minister for Labour. And myself, I've represented members on the South East Regional Executive since I was 18, and I now sit on the Women's Conference Arrangements Committee, working to make sure Women's Conference is democratic, member-led, has as much power to influence party policy as possible, and as co-chair of the Campaign for Labour Party Democracy, fighting to keep Labour members' voices front and centre in the party. And I don't sit in all these meetings because I enjoy complicated discussions about process. I do so because I'm committed above all else to a mass membership, socialist, democratic Labour Party, one that will oppose the Tories and fight for peace and socialism and internationalism here and abroad. So the central premises the Grassroots Voice team are standing on are to seek a mandate for the policy agenda developed over the last few years and to unite the party in support of these policies, and to continue the democratisation of the party and to say to our new leadership, there's no mandate to reverse the direction the party's taken over the last few years. And if you're looking to seek one, you're going to have to ask us, the members, our annual sovereign conference. And I tell you, we're not gonna give him one. And of course, to continue to work for and to win for the people, a transformative Labour government. To finish off, I'd like to quote a giant of our movement, Mr. Jeremy Corbyn. He said, left parties have lost office in Europe because of their inability to articulate an alternative to austerity and cuts. The right offers individualism, a huge and growing wealth gap, and a mean and divided society. Socialism is the sharing of wealth, the contribution of ability for the common good, and unity in defending our achievements against attack. It's also our only hope. Thank you so much for coming this evening. Solidarity.
Thank you so much to you, Gemma. And you kept in time. This is like a miracle. I'm going to start getting strict with the speakers because we have so many more to hear. I'm just going to say a couple of things. There are ways that you can definitely help the left team to get on the NEC. So obviously the first thing is voting, but we also have a campaign tool. We have a manifesto. So that is going to be put on the post wherever you're watching this. Please share that manifesto far and wide in WhatsApp groups, on threads, online. Please share it as far and wide as you possibly can. Hello, Laura. You're not next. You've got time to catch your breath. You'll see people popping up as they pop into the meeting. But also please go and follow all of the speakers tonight on Twitter and follow their pages on Facebook and make sure that you share it too. I'm really pleased to announce what is a first, which is our first left candidate for disabled members rep on the NEC. I first met Ellen Morrison quite a few years ago now, campaigning against universal credit. She brought the campaign to me in Parliament in her work with the disabled people against the cuts. Ellen Morrison, it's over to you.
Great, and thanks very much for having me here tonight. I know that for a lot of members, there's been a big focus around CLP reps, and rightly so, but I'm really glad to have the opportunity to talk about what is a historic election for us of the first ever disabled members rep on the NEC. And as we pass the 10-year anniversary of the Equality Act, we have to ask ourselves what has actually happened for disabled people in that time. If anything, because of the consecutive Tory governments and their policies, we've only seen our rights eroded. Hundreds of thousands of disabled people have paid the price with their lives. And this has only worsened with a pandemic where, once again, it's our lives that have been seen as expendable. The Office for National Statistics showed that 6 out of 10 COVID deaths were disabled people. And as a young disabled woman, I'm 11 times more likely to die from COVID than my non-disabled friends. It couldn't be clearer. We need a re-energised fight back against this government. I'm someone who's been at the sharp end of Tory policies, seeing cuts to local services, closures of the one hospital clinic that existed to treat people with my condition, and experiencing the stress of repeated assessments for benefits, at one point having them halved despite no changes to my health. Living through this made me convinced I had to be part of something bigger, to resist austerity and fight for something better. I joined Unite Community and discovered the power of collective action. As secretary of my branch, we campaigned against Tory welfare cuts, for socialist policies, and in solidarity with comrades in their workplaces. I also campaigned with Disabled People Against Cuts, DPAC, as we fought back against universal credit. And I joined the Labour Party, where I brought my conviction to advance disabled people's interests into my CLP and the wider movement. And while I've been proud of the campaigns and the wins that I've been part of, I can't pretend it's been easy. Disabled people spend so much of our time just fighting to access Labour's spaces and events. We make up nearly a quarter of the population, but does anyone see that reflected in CLP meetings, conferences, let alone our elected representatives? Labour has been slow, but I really think that the time is now. Our movement owes it to disabled people to finally allow us to take the decisions that affect us, whether that's on shaping the policies we desperately need or giving us our own disabled members' structures to organise within the party, as were promised to us in the Democracy Review. I think our party needs to be honest with itself that it hasn't prioritised disabled members. We need a party-wide accessibility review to look at where we're going wrong and to listen to deaf and disabled members on how to rectify that. If I'm elected, you can guarantee I will always stand in solidarity with other underrepresented groups. We're stronger when we stand together in shared struggle for equality and representation in the party. At a time when our trans members are facing horrific abuse at every level, I want to make it especially clear I will always stand with them and support them. I'm standing as a candidate who's from our movement and I'll fight for our movement. I'm committed to being an accountable representative who has the experience of representing and fighting for disabled people, so we can finally make our party a welcoming, open, and democratic space for all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ellen. Thanks so much for that contribution. And we wish you all of the luck in the world to get on the NEC, to serve alongside the Grassroots Voice team. And please do give Ellen your support. We're going to come next to Yasmine Dar. Yasmine is the second of the Grassroots Voice team that you're going to hear from tonight. Yasmine has already served on the National Executive Committee. She has served as well. People think that it's like really glamorous on the NEC, Yasmine. You're going to tell us it is, aren't you? Over to you, Yasmine.
Good evening, comrades, activists, socialists. It's an honour to be here, and peace and blessings to you all. Firstly, a massive thanks to the team for organising this rally this evening. It's a shame I can't see everybody's faces, but I can see you all smiling, okay? So let me just remind you, the Labour Party belongs to its members, which is why we, the grassroots voice, the GV6, will prioritise the fight for member-led democracy. We are proud to be supported by the centre-left Grassroots Alliance, and between us, we have extensive experience to represent and be a strong voice for grassroots members. As you may know, I'm standing for re-election to the NEC, previously been elected with the JC9 team, a great team including Anne Henderson, Rachel Garnham, Darren Williams, Huda Elmi, John Landsman, Claudia Webb and Nav Mishri. It was clear we were very strong supporters of Jeremy Corbyn's leadership and his agenda for democratisation, alongside promoting the policies and processes and organisation needed to win elections. We've done our very best to push that agenda forward on the NEC by working with comrades in the trade unions and the shadow cabinet. Along with my JC9 comrades, I've been a strong supporter of our popular transformative economic policies and international foreign policy for peace, justice and human rights throughout the world. Push for implementation of the democracy review, including the creation of equality structures and the NEC seats that will allow greater member involvement. Being committed to a transparent, fair disciplinary process based on natural justice. I supported more say for grassroots members, for example, through open selections. And my experiences as a BAME woman, a social worker, an anti-racist activist, and a councillor have shaped my socialism and fueled my determination to fight for a transformative Labour government. The COVID pandemic has taught us that we must defend and advance the progressive policies of 2017 and 2019. And those policies that have been democratically agreed by annual conference, including our domestic policy and international policy, such as on Palestine and on Kashmir, supporting campaigns such as Black Lives Matter and the Green New Deal, as well as a strong commitment to being anti-war. And I want to pay tribute to Anne because she's been relentless in her role as chair of Equalities Committee in making sure a democratic, inclusive women's conference has been at the very top of the agenda. The Democratic Women's Organisation is not only important in its own right, it also paves the way for developing the work we're doing in regards to structures for BAME members and disabled members. We've had a number of meetings about how we build generally inclusive and effective democratic self-organised structures for BAME members to build on the work we've done for the Women's Organisation. We've introduced a democratically elected seat for BAME members, but this is nowhere near enough. And we need to be introducing an annual policy making conference for BAME members that feeds into annual conference in the same way the Women's Conference does. We should be introducing a committee for Black, Asian, multi-ethnic members who can lead the work in this area. And believe me, there's no shortage of work. With racism on the rise across the world, we need to be able to discuss and organise as members of the Labour Party to address racism in our own party and beyond, and to improve political education in this area and to ensure that a diverse range of candidates are selected and supported. This work has started, but there's still a long way to go. And one of my key reasons for restanding for the NEC is to see this work through. Let's make this happen together. Finally, please support the Grassroots Voice 6. That's Anne Henderson, Lara Pidcock, Nadia, Jama, Gemma Bolton, Mish, Rahman, and myself, Yasmine. Thank you so much, solidarity.
Thank you so much, Yasmine. You're going to be hearing our names in your sleep by the end of this rally. I'm going straight to Lara McNeill. She is current youth rep on the NEC and she's standing again on the left for youth rep. She's also a doctor. So welcome to Lara. Thank you so much for everything you are doing throughout this pandemic. You are very, very welcome here.
Thank you so much, and thanks for inviting me to this rally. As Laura said, my name's Lara and I represent young people in the NEC and I'm standing for re-election. So let's get started. So working in the NHS, I've been absolutely desperate for Labour to expose the full extent of this crisis that our health system is under, a systematic failure that has left my colleagues doing their best to save lives with decaying infrastructure and out-of-date PPE. And instead, our party has been too willing to go along with government policy rather than present a courageous alternative. And many young members are disappointed and angry. I've been persuading them with all my heart to stay in the Labour Party, but we have to prove that we are a party worth sticking with. Tony Benn spoke of two flames in every person, the flame of anger against injustice and the flame of hope in a better world. I feel both those two flames burning in me, and I'm sure lots of you do, which is why I'm once again standing to represent young members on our NEC. When asked by angry members about why they should stay, I remind them of the socialist heritage in our party, the left-wingers who ignored Labour's leadership and confronted the black shirts during the struggles of the 30s, the stalwarts like Bernie Grant and Diane Abbott who fought racism and sexism when these issues were embarrassing to the party's establishment, the Tribune Group and union-sponsored MPs who resisted attempts to water down our commitment to workers' rights when we were in power, and figures like Jeremy Corbyn and Dennis Skinner who spoke out against the war on terror and the demonisation of Britain's Muslim community. And this is the red thread of Labour that I proudly identify with, and I'm sure members of the CLGA slate do too. And organising with the oppressed must remain at the heart of our path to victory. When a young multiracial movement in Bristol tears down the statues, and when trans people face horrific levels of discrimination for simply existing, young Labour and the Labour Party should stand in solidarity with them, whether that bigotry comes from street harassment or government legislation. When Boris Johnson tries to force teachers and carers to work in potentially lethal conditions during a pandemic, we must unconditionally stand with these workers and their unions and not be invested in petty parliamentary gains like those we've seen this evening. This is the Young Labour and the Labour Party that I've helped to build over the last 2 years, and one we must keep building. As our generation faces Tory rule, a resurgent far right, living and working at the mercy of bosses and landlords, and looming climate breakdown, we need an organised, fighting youth movement and Labour Party. And Labour, yes, frustrates us all sometimes. I campaign to make it better because I love this party and desperately want a Labour government. We cannot win with young people alone, but we cannot win without my generation either. We can't forget that this Tory government went hard and won on false promises of radical change to left behind communities. There can't be any real return to the false comfort of business as usual politics. And we know we need a Labour Party that's serious about a socialist alternative, which takes us from anger to hope and victory. I desperately want Keir Starmer to be the next Prime Minister. We have to be honest, that won't happen unless Labour goes into the next election staying true to the radical principles on which he was elected to lead our party. So elect all the representatives speaking tonight and myself to the NEC, and we can fight for a party that is truly socialist and democratic to make that happen. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lara. And like with Ellen, we wish you all the luck in the world to get on or re-elected to the NEC. I'm coming next to another Grassroots Voice candidate, so somebody that you will be voting for on Monday, and that is Anne Henderson. Anne is already on the NEC, so she is seeking re-election. And over to you, Anne.
Right, okay, good. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining the call, and thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I was elected to the National Executive Committee in September 2018, and it would be fair to say that it took some time to find my way around the structures and the various committees. As chair of the Equalities Committee, there's been a lot of work to do to develop and build the self-organising structures to which other speakers have referred, and bringing hopefully Ellen on to fill the disabled seat is part of that process. We've been able to get more members involved, and that's been very much our commitment, to hear the voices of members at every level in what is a mass party. And I don't think we should underestimate the difficulties of organising and working with such a large number of members. It's fantastic, and it brings its own challenges too. I joined the NEC as part of a team, and I hope this time to be able to do that again. It's important that we go in as a team. We work together with the trade union comrades and other supporters of the left on the NEC. But that collaboration is about more than what we do on the National Executive Committee. It has to work across nations and regions of our land to build the strongest Labour Party and the strongest Labour movement. We have to be aware, all of us, of the similar and different challenges facing us in Scotland, in Wales, the Northeast, the Northwest, in cities and rural areas, on the islands and on the mainland. The Tories government's response to the pandemic shows how little it cares for the workers who keep the economy going and the families who are struggling to hold their communities together, communities already starved of resource. Research published this week from the UK Women's Budget Group and the University of Nottingham and the Institute of Employment Research at Warwick tells us again that women are bearing the brunt. Working class women have lost more hours of work, are least likely to be able to work from home, and are the majority of key workers on whom society depends. The key workers who are in closest contact with customers, with patients, with clients, the mothers, the aunts, the sisters, the grandmothers and partners who go home each day worrying about whether they will be taking the virus home to those for whom they care and provide. With child poverty rising and mass unemployment on the horizon, pandemic is exacerbating inequalities in women's lives, on race, on disability, and we need a bold Labour response. There is no more time. We must speak up everywhere at every level. And I just want to do a quick reference back, if you like, a look back, and remind ourselves that the Labour Party and the Labour movement was built by women who understood their rights were not delivered without a struggle, women who spoke up against discrimination, against racism, against sexual violence and against domestic abuse and discrimination based on their sex. I think of Jessie Stephen, a young member of the ILP in Glasgow in the early 1900s, organising a trade union amongst domestic servants, holding mass meetings of a group of women workers who were incredibly isolated and often mistreated. Mary MacArthur, one of the founders of the National Union of Women Workers, 1908, women chainmakers of Cradley Heath, the jute mill workers of Dundee, taking the voices of women to the parliamentarians as well as to their employers. It was women workers who led the way in what we now know as the minimum wage and fighting for wages boards, taking women to Westminster to present their case, and the Trades Boards Act of 1909 set minimum standards in sweated industries. Jane Ray, a woman who was one of the leaders of a strike in Singer's sewing machine factory in 1911 in Clydebank, taking thousands of workers out on strike. Jane lost her job, yet she went on to play a key role in local government in Clydebank in the early 1900s, speaking up for nurseries, speaking up for maternity clinics. And when she became a Justice of the Peace, she apparently had a fearsome reputation for dealing with men charged with domestic abuse. That's the legacy we are here with today. The Labour group in Westminster today has more women MPs than men, and I'm proud of being part of an NEC that helped to deliver that, to be honest. Be proud of that, be proud of the diversity in our PLP, but it's not enough. In Scotland, whilst our record on women's representation is the best of the parties in the Scottish Parliament, to our shame, we have only 28% of Labour councillors are women. Women's voices in all their diversity must be round every table, as Ellen and Lara from their own constituencies have also mentioned, but not just at the table. Women must be heard, not silenced. Debate and discussion makes our movement stronger, not weaker. And the legacy from those women who fought for workers' rights and women's rights over 100 years ago is not ours to squander. This is everyone's responsibility, everyone who's here today. Speak up against racist, sexist, misogynist abuse when you hear it and you see it. Listen to the women in our families, our trade unions and our communities, because we need their strength. We need to shift our economic priorities, create a caring economy with public services at its heart, truly just redistributing power and wealth, value and respect everyone's contribution in our party and in our movement. And as part of the GV6 and the speakers here tonight, I'll be part of that team on the National Executive Committee, ensuring that everyone's voice is heard. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Anne, for that contribution. We are going to be joined by Richard Byrgon MP in just a second. I just want to explain one quick thing. So there's 3 things you can do to help us in the election. I've already spoke about the manifesto and sharing that as far and as wide as you can. You can follow all of the candidates online, including the disabled seat and the youth seat and the Welsh rep seat. But this is not a first past the post election. It is a voting system called single transferable vote. Now, to make it as simple as possible, there has been a postcode finder postcode tool created by the campaign. All you have to do is pop your postcode in that tool and it will generate the list for your region and in what order you should be voting or what order we are asking you to vote. So that link has been put on the chat bar in our webinar and is now being distributed across the social media platforms. Welcome, Richard Byrgon. Welcome to this meeting. Richard is my friend. He is a comrade. He is a principled MP, another MP, thankfully, that voted against that pernicious, awful bill that was brought to Parliament, which really was an attack on our movement. The floor is yours, Richard Byrgon.
Thanks very much, Laura, and it's a real pleasure to be with you all tonight. I'm glad so many people have joined us for this important rally. I'm proud to support the Grassroots Voice 6 because the grassroots voice of Labour members is needed more than ever at the heart of our party. And I make these comments to you knowing, and I'm full aware, how demoralised people on the left have been feeling. There was a disastrous election defeat. The left didn't win in the leadership elections earlier this year, but defeats for the left in every internal election is not inevitable. The left can win and win well in these NEC elections, and it's important that we do, because the left isn't just MPs in Parliament, far from it. The left is made up in our movement of, yes, the left in the Socialist Campaign Group of Labour MPs, of which I'm proud to be the secretary, the left in our trade unions like Unite, the FBU, the Communication Workers Union, the Bakers Union, and others, and the left in the party membership, represented by the Grassroots Voice 6 and Momentum, and of course the left in the wider social movements, such as the environmental campaigns, such as Black Lives Matter, and all other anti-racist campaigns. So we need the biggest possible left campaign. There isn't time to be demoralised. There isn't time to feel down in the dumps. We don't have the luxury of that indulgence anymore. I totally understand how people feel, but we now need to concentrate all our efforts into pushing to wrestle from this dreadful government the biggest possible concessions in favour of the working class in all its diversity that we can. Tens of thousands of lives depend upon it. Hundreds and hundreds of thousands of jobs and more depend upon it. So now's not the time to give up. Now's the time to get more involved than ever before, because we're facing the public health crisis of coronavirus, but also the biggest economic crisis that's ever occurred in our lifetimes. And we need to stand up for our communities. We can't be silent. We can't sit on our hands. We can't abstain from this struggle. I know that the left won't do so. So we need to be arguing that not one single person will be made homeless as a result of the coronavirus crisis. We need to be arguing to kick out Serco from test and trace and put that money in the hands of the National Health Service to pursue a zero COVID strategy. It breaks my heart when I think how many people in our country are feeling isolated, how many people are worried about losing their job, how many people are worried about losing their home. I saw at the weekend a picture from New Zealand of people enjoying themselves at a rugby match. I want to see people in Liverpool, Leeds and London and across the country enjoying themselves in a similar way, but being safe to do so without putting themselves or others at risk. And the only way to do that is for our government to have some humility and look at governments around the world that have sorted this out and have dealt with it better. Look at the government of New Zealand, look at South Korea, look at Vietnam and others. We need to pursue a zero COVID strategy to get the levels of infection down to such a level, because it's not a choice between public health or the economy. The only way to save lives and to protect livelihoods is by pursuing this zero COVID strategy. And at the same time, we need to argue for full economic support for all areas that have to face those restrictions, which are necessary only because of the failure of the government. I've only got 30 seconds left, so I'll finish on this. From the bottom of my heart, thank you to everyone on the left who's sticking with the left through these troubled times. If people with our politics in other countries can carry on struggling, then so can we. Look at our comrades in Bolivia, in Ecuador and elsewhere. People put in jail on trumped-up charges because of their socialist politics. People exiled from those countries on trumped-up charges because of their politics. If they can carry on struggling, then so can we. And if we carry on struggling together, I know that we can win together, both in these NEC elections and more widely, for the purpose which our movement was created, to achieve that fairer, more equal, more just society when poverty and discrimination are banished to where they belong, in the dustbin of history. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much to Richard Byrgon, Member of Parliament for Leeds East and brilliant comrade in the movement. And thanks so much too for him reminding us of the struggle internationally and the huge, huge pressures that sisters and brothers face elsewhere in the world, just trying to fight for that better system. Mish Rahman, welcome. He is a grassroots voice team candidate. He is standing for the NEC elections in our team. It is over to you, Mish.
Thank you, Laura. And wow, thank you everyone for being here today. And I have to say, I'm absolutely honoured and proud to be on a platform among such stalwarts of our movement here today. And the great man, Jeremy Corbyn himself. It's such an honour for myself. Comrades, we need to build the future we need, and we have to radically transform society. Now, I've heard this uttered so many times, especially recently from sections of the party who don't know what radical is, even if it hits them in the face. Let me explain. Radical means something that has not been done before, something beyond the practice normal, and transformative means change, real change, positive change that will alter the direction of our lives. Now, one thing's for sure, you aren't going to achieve radical or transformative by sitting on the fence and abstaining, fam. It ain't going to happen. We need a radical and transformative Labour government. We cannot go back to the old normal and pre-corona, because pre-corona did not work for us. We cannot consolidate the rich and wealthy again like we did after the financial crash of 2007, when instead of radically transforming society, we ended up bailing out the banks from our pockets and suffering over a decade of austerity, as a result ruining the lives of a whole generation. To radically transform, let's speak in their language, the Labour Party needs to get out the circuit breaker and press the reset button. No more supplementing a broken society. We have to radically transform it. So to radically transform, we need to develop a policy programme, and that means defending and building on the last two manifestos, fighting for the Green New Deal, fighting for public ownership, fighting for a just welfare system, fighting to roll back the privatisation of the NHS, fighting for international solidarity, repealing all anti-trade union laws, advancing migrants' rights, and more. The Labour Party also needs to embrace democracy. We need democracy in our selection process of MPs and candidates. No Labour MP should be inflicted on a CLP who doesn't want them. Members have to decide who represents them and not the party machine. We need a Labour Party that's going to welcome and stand up for everyone, regardless of their colour, their creed, their gender, unequivocally backing common people against power and prejudice, be it Black Lives Matters or Windrush or Grenfell. We need a Labour Party that has a moral conscience and cares for the most vulnerable in society. We need a Labour Party that will fix the inequality in society. We need a socialist Labour Party. Now, all of us have a part to play in mending this broken system. And unless each and every one of us steps up, events like today in Parliament will be repeated again and again. For someone like myself, who was politicised by the Iraq War, like many others of thousands of my generation, we saw what happens when a leader acts as if with impunity, like Tony Blair. For any leader of the Labour Party to whip out MPs to abstain on a despicable covert human intelligence sources bill, especially a leader with a record as a top human rights lawyer, that is a shame to our party, I'm sorry to say. If you are willing to turn a blind eye to this, what else will you turn a blind eye to if and when you become Prime Minister? Think about it, because unless there are people with a conscience in every echelon of this party, things will not change. We need an NEC that will make sure the party is ready to build the future we need for when we are in government. Look, I don't just want to be another voice on the NEC. I want to be the voice of every single person that has faced discrimination and hatred, because self-organising is not following their processes. It's creating our own and delivering meaningful change. Comrades, if elected to Labour's NEC, I and my other grassroots voice candidates will hold the leader's feet to the fire on clear and unambiguous policies. We will hold his feet to the fire in support of refugees and migrants' rights, making sure that no one is illegal. We'll make sure that BLM is a movement to bring about structural change. And we will also hold the leadership to account on behalf of you, the members, as he has to deliver on his pledges and promises to us when he was elected. The Labour Party may be under new management, but we won't allow it to be another new Labour. We need grassroots voices who speak truth to power in every corridor of power, in our branches, in our CLPs, in our Labour groups, in our council chambers, and in our parliamentary Labour Party. The socialist flame cannot just flicker, it has to shine bright. Peace and solidarity, comrade, and a special thank you to Jeremy Corbyn for inspiring people like me and thousands of others. Thank you, comrades.
Mish, thank you so much for that contribution. Make sure you're following Mish online if you're not doing that already. Listen, a few of you are saying you haven't got your ballots yet. Don't worry, man. They're not even out yet. We are well organised here in this left team. We are making sure that you feel enthused for when the ballots do arrive from Monday. So don't be worrying that you haven't got your ballots yet. The process that you took part in for nominations was exactly that. So if you went to your CLP and argued for us, thank you so much. But that was to make sure that we got on the ballot. We got on the ballot, our team got the highest number of nominations by far, so we are doing really, really well. The next job now is to convert that into votes. So watch out from Monday for your ballots. He's appeared. Howard Beckett is next. He is the Assistant General Secretary of Unite with responsibility for politics, and he is lucky enough to be an NEC rep already. Over to you, Howard.
I am indeed, Laura, an NEC rep already, and Mish told me privately before we came on this Zoom that he was going to be a hard act to follow, that he would knock it out of the park. Well, Mish, you did. A proud Unite member, and you have been an immense act to follow, and you've got my vote, that's for sure, Mish. So absolutely superb contribution. Thank you very much. And Mish has hit the nail in the head whenever he's talked about his pride in respect of his trade unionism and why he wants to be an NEC member, because I've sat in the NEC for Unite, and I understand the importance of a left vote on the NEC. I understand where we're moving to, where we're drifting to. I see the right-wing bloc vote en masse on the NEC, and I know the importance of the relationships that the unions need to have, the left unions now need to have with the CLPs. So as we talk about the left and we talk about the right, and our agenda has to be one that continues those amazing transformative policies of Jeremy Corbyn's Labour and pushes them through for the next generation and delivers on the hope that Mish and talked about in his contribution. And it would be remiss of me not to give my personal thanks to Jeremy Corbyn on a Zoom such as this, on a rally such as this. Jeremy has stood on picket lines with trade unionists all around our nations. He never has turned a blind eye to a dispute. He has never turned a blind eye to a campaign. He has always looked to step up for the most vulnerable in our society, and he's always understood the importance of collectivism. He has never pitted individual members against the trade unions. He has understood the importance of left unity if we are to achieve the radical agenda of a socialist Labour government. And Jeremy gave all of us hope. He gave hope to a new generation, but he gave hope to trade unionists that we could have a party that represents our true collectivism. So we may well have a change in leader, but we must not have a change in direction. It must continue on our transformative agenda. And let's be honest, comrades, we all know that there have been things that have happened since the last leadership election that we are very uncomfortable with. And I say that mildly. We are extremely uncomfortable with them. We have seen a change in our General Secretary and the exit of the most wonderful Jenny Formby, a previous regional secretary of my union Unite, and an advocate for left unity always. We have seen the sacking of Rebecca Long-Bailey, who does not have a racist bone in her body. We have seen the settlement of the defamation cases despite the legal advice and despite the angst of the left. And here with these elections, we've seen the gerrymandering of the NEC elections, where there is one voting system for the CLPs and one voting system for the Parliamentary Labour Party that was put forward on one paper to the NEC, because those differing voting systems both have in common only one thing, and that is that they prefer the right. So the importance now of left unity cannot be overstated. And we have seen today the disgraceful decision to abstain on the covert surveillance bill that went through Parliament today, a license for operatives of the state to infiltrate trade unions, to agitate in trade unions and campaign groups for criminal behaviour, and a license to carry out criminal behaviour themselves with complete impunity. We can't allow that to continue. We have to have a strong left voice on our NEC that speaks for the left values that we uphold. And coming through the COVID crisis, knowing that we are in the second wave, means that it is more important than ever that we have a Labour voice that talks about people deserving to be safe in work, talks about people deserving jobs after this crisis, talks about the parking of COVID debt as if it is wartime debt, has the same ambition as the Labour government had in 1946, when after the Second World War, they built 1 million homes, built the NHS state and the social state, and said that their children deserve to be educated at the highest of levels. We need a Labour Party that will speak for the vulnerable, will speak for the NHS, will speak for youth without debt. We need socialism. So whether you're watching this with your roots in the CLP or in the trade union, please vote for a left slate that speaks for socialism and speaks for the development of a socialist Labour Party. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you so much, Howard, and thanks for all you do to champion the left, both on the NEC and in your union, Unite the Union. Just so you know, the word slate's been used quite a few times. Like, what does it even mean? Really, it just means a team. Like, we're standing as a group of 6 as a team, so we're carrying each other, if you like. We want all 6 to get on, and we want to work as a team whilst on the NEC so that we carry power. It's about organising and it's about power. And a powerful woman next we have in Nadia Jama. She is an absolute star. She is also a candidate for the NEC on the Grassroots Voice team. Nadia.
Thank you, Laura. And thanks to everyone for tuning into the rally tonight. It's really great to get so much support for the team. I want to start by pointing to the difference between the way we do politics and the way that the Tories do things. The Conservatives have the money for the big corporations and the influence of the media barons. We have our solidarity and ability to organise together collectively. And that's why the members of the Labour Party are its greatest asset. We are the trade unionists organising in our workplaces, the activists building in our communities, and the people who go knocking on doors in all weathers. So my message to you tonight is this: time and time again, it's the membership of the Labour Party that has stepped up to the challenges of the 21st century on the economy, on climate justice, on supporting a foreign policy built on values of solidarity and social justice. It's the members of this party that have championed the radical solutions to the problems we face, not only as a country, but as a planet. At over 500,000 members, I believe the Labour Party should be a member-led movement for social change, and yes, a movement for socialism. So it's been music to my ears to hear Laura define what she thinks socialism is for the 21st century, because it's only those politics that can address the unprecedented public health, economic and environmental crises we face. We must offer that alternative now. The Tories cannot be allowed to define the terms of debate for the next 4 years. So let me be crystal clear about 2 things. First, far from abstaining on war crimes or fundamental issues like granting the intelligence service impunity to commit murder or sexual assault, our party should carry the torch for human rights. No abstentions, no ambiguity, no to spy cops or state-sanctioned human rights abusers. So I send my solidarity to the 34 MPs tonight. And second, we should offer no support to Boris Johnson on his handling of the COVID crisis. There is nothing this government has done since the onset of this pandemic that could possibly justify support for them. The recently released SAGE minutes make it clear we are now entering the second wave of the pandemic. That's because the government has failed to follow the scientific advice. Instead, they've prioritised corporate profits. We should be calling for a zero COVID strategy that puts health, well-being and financial security of people first. Labour must support the public health experts, the trade unions and parents sounding the alarm over the unsafe, rushed return to workplaces, campuses and schools. The local spikes are a testament to how badly the Tories have got this. Serco Track and Trace has been a £12 billion disaster, from data breaches, a failure to phone COVID contacts, to the Excel spreadsheet fiasco. Rather than giving handouts to outsourcing companies, we should be resourcing local authority, public health teams who know their communities best to create their own track and trace systems. The pandemic has created an unprecedented economic crisis, with the economy contracting by 20% in the last quarter. Unemployment is predicted to soar between 10 and 14%. And this government's job support package is pathetic. People will take a significant pay cut at the same time as they're expected to pay bills, their rent, as well as buy food. So as a party, we must push for the extension of the furlough scheme at 80% of pay, and the extension of the self-employed income support schemes. We need to close the holes in the system that has left 3 million people unsupported, and we should raise statutory sick pay, making it available to all workers and in line with the real living wage. These are the things we should be pushing as a party. So there should also be no question or doubt where we stand with millions of private renters by calling for rent cancellation for the duration of this crisis. We must call for significant investment to protect jobs and the economy and to keep that moving. That should include a Green New Deal to invest in renewable energy, greening our transport infrastructure, refitting the existing housing stock and building more sustainable houses. We've got to do something different. We cannot go back to business as usual. These are the things that the six of us believe in. And Jeremy was right when he said that we didn't go far enough or fast enough in the last 5 years. And that's why the GV6 are standing in this election to continue that fight. We must elect socialists to all levels of the party if we want to see change, because changing our party is part and parcel of changing our country, because we are the people who know our communities best. So as the voice of our members, the GV6 will champion the socialist policies and politics needed to address the challenges of our time. So please vote, and I'm going to name all of us: Lara Pidcock, Anne Henderson, Yasmine, Gemma, Bolton, Mish, Rahman and myself, of course. So thank you and solidarity, and we look forward to your support continuing.
Thank you so much, Nadia. We need a song or something, don't we? Like, which knits together all of our names. Maybe somebody who's watching could create that for us by Monday when the ballots drop. Look, I'm just going to say a few words now before I bring in the absolutely amazing Jeremy Corbyn. I just want to recognise that many people will be still feeling wounded, hurt, in pain at the lost opportunity of a socialist government led by Jeremy Corbyn and of the transformation that that could have enabled. I feel it too. We all feel it. All of the candidates that are standing in this election feel that. We feel a sense of responsibility to carry on that baton of the movement and all of the work that has been done so far within the party to shift it to the left, to shift it toward the politics that we desperately need. The opportunity for that kind of government has gone. It's gone, and we must start anew. We're starting from, we're not starting from nothing, and we're not starting from the beginning either in the Labour Party. It has been tempting to walk away for people. I imagine that. I know it feels like you want to get control of the change by rejecting it or leaving or saying, you know, that's it. I can't take this anymore. And from some of the things that have been mentioned tonight that signify or give us a sense that things might be changing and the policy might be changing in the party. And we must be gentle on the left with those people who have decided to leave, because we want them to come back one day. But we win nothing. We win absolutely nothing without organising. And it is unthinkable that there is not or there will not be an organised socialist current in the Labour Party. That is unthinkable, sisters and brothers. So we have to get organised. We have to get organised within the party, because if we don't like the direction of travel that the party is taking, we need to have the power from the base to change that, hand in hand with the extra parliamentary movement. Because I am not sure that things for working class people could be more serious than they are right now. We are facing an intense workers' rights crisis, an environmental catastrophe, a crisis in health, and with very dangerous people in power who are putting the health of the economy of their friends, shareholder value above the interests and health of working people. The threshold for what it is to be safe at work has been smashed by what people are having to endure in the workplace right now. We have to say it is incumbent on us, because we can look around and say who else is saying this, but we are the left, we are socialists, representative of working people in a Labour Party. It is incumbent on us to say enough is enough and be uncompromising in our politics. I just want to finish really by saying we have to dig deep now, comrades. I know it's really hard. I know things have changed. I know it feels so different now, but all is not lost. We are so powerful when we are united, when we organise, when we continue to explain in tenderness, in love, what could be different, and why socialism really is the answer to all of the grave, big, scary problems in our world. And the NEC isn't glamorous. We know that it's hard to get like really excited by this election on Monday. We're not silly. We are also dealing with all of the worries and all of the strain of the pandemic. So much has had to be online because we can't see you, we can't be with you in comradeship in the room together. So we know this isn't easy, but we're asking you to see this as really important. We're asking for a big push over the weekend to share whatever these candidates put out, whatever I put out, whatever Nadia, Mish, Gemma, Anne, Lara, Yasmine, Ellen, I'll probably miss someone in people's bad books. Share whatever they put out over the weekend until the ballots drop, because it is so important that we get as many people as possible enthused in this election. Share that manifesto, share the postcode finder so people know the order of preference to be voting in. Share, because it's what we can do. Send it in your WhatsApp group, send it around, annoy people, pester people, occupy every single space with our politics. I'm coming to the one and only Jeremy Corbyn. Where are you? Come on screen, Jeremy. I just want to say personal thanks to Jeremy Corbyn, actually, to him as Labour leader. In the time that he was Labour leader, somebody put it really well the other day, that in the time as Labour leader, what we had in him was somebody who was of the movement. Jeremy Corbyn was one of the co-founders of the People's Assembly. I'm now National Secretary of the People's Assembly, but there, you know, you just knew when Jeremy went on telly, he wasn't going to sell you out. He wasn't going to say things that you were cringing at. He was strong, solid, and just one of us. And you are still in the fight, Jeremy Corbyn, and you are here to talk to us tonight about why we should care, why people should vote for the left team on the NEC elections. It is my honour, my pleasure to introduce you, Jeremy Corbyn.
Laura, thank you very much. And you're absolutely brilliant in many things you do, not least at chairing this meeting and keeping everybody to time. And for those of you who are about to become members of the NEC, it has a reputation for very long meetings. I'll leave that there. You can change that. There's so much to say, but I just want to start with this. A very big thank you to thousands and thousands of members of the party who have given me their friendship, given me their thoughts, and given me their support and solidarity over many, many years. And I've learned so much just by talking to and listening to people all over the country on many, many occasions at big rallies, small rallies, meetings, demonstrations, discussion groups, Green Industrial Revolution roundtables, lots of different things. And we only hold office in the party because we've been entrusted with that by other members of the party. And we should never forget the importance of listening to people on what their views are and trying to carry those views forward. What I was determined to do as leader of the party was to change our way of doing things, to make the Labour Party a mass organisation, to make the Labour Party a community-based organisation with community organisers in every community around the country, so that when people are campaigning to get a nursery built, campaigning to improve a park, campaigning to support a food bank, campaigning to defend an NHS facility, campaigning for more resources for their local authority, supporting local workers who are trying to improve their conditions, all those kind of campaigns and issues, the Labour Party should always be there as part of them. So that when we turn up asking people for their support for Labour candidates in council elections or in a parliamentary election, we're not seen as strangers. We are the people that have been part of the campaign. We've been part of that community and part of people's lives. That surely is the way the Labour Party has got to be. Because if we rely on the mainstream media to get our message across for us, it might be a very long wait. Some of you have probably heard this figure before. In the last week of the 2019 general election campaign, over 90% of all mainstream media coverage, particularly in the print media, was hostile or downright abusive to Labour. We can get our message across through what we're doing tonight, through social media, through our day-to-day campaigning, and through those conversations that people have with each other about the kind of world and kind of society that they can be in. We approach these elections for the National Executive on the back of the general election defeat in December, and nobody is more sad than me at that election defeat. The way in which our party was abused, the way in which we were attacked. But the policies, the individual policies on green industrial revolution, on public ownership, on the way in which we should fund and run our National Health Service and our care service, the National Education Service, all those policies individually were very, very popular and remain so. So there is a thirst for people who want to see a different structure in our society, a society that absolutely cares for all. And so the candidates that we're putting forward in this election are absolutely brilliant people. Laura, I know you very well. You've been brilliant in the shadow cabinet and fantastic MP and great campaigner. Gemma, Yasmine, Anne, Mish, Nadia. What a fantastic team. People with real life experience, people who genuinely represent the views of party members, people that will be knocking on doors as well as going to NEC meetings, as well as meeting and listening to members. And Ellen, going forward to be the disabled person's representative of the NEC, I can't think of a better qualified person to do it, because of the way in which you've always stood up for people with disabilities and the way they've been so disgracefully treated and the way you quite rightly pointed out they disproportionately suffer as a result of Corona. And Lara, as our youth representative on the NEC, you've been absolutely brilliant. You speak up for all young people around the country. You speak up from your knowledge of being an absolutely crucial frontline worker in the National Health Service, and what a brilliant doctor you are as well. But also you have that depth of humanity and passion, which is exactly what we need. And I loved what Mick's contribution was tonight about the way in which things have changed in Wales and the campaigning that we've achieved and done in Wales, and the way in which the whole country benefited from the work of a great Welsh speaker, Aaron Bevan, and in his campaign to achieve a national health service. And so I think that we've got an incredible team there. And the contribution of my good friends Richard and Howard tonight demonstrate just how passionate and how important things are. But this, whilst every single one of our candidates that I've mentioned, I have total support and total confidence in, it's not just about them. It's about the policies that our party has. It's about the direction in which we go. It is about the need for greater democracy, greater accountability, and greater transparency in what our party does. And I want to thank all those that organised tonight's meeting, not least those that have done the British Sign Language translation interpretation for everyone tonight, and those that have done the technical side of things, because they are quite incredible. I want to say just a couple of things, if I may, about policies. The corona crisis has shown up our society for what it is: deeply divided between the richest and the poorest, deeply divided between those that have made a great deal of money out of this crisis, the contractors, Serco, Amazon, etc., those that have suffered in this crisis, and those that have stepped up to the plate in a superhuman way, who work in our care homes, our NHS facilities, and so many other places. They have shown what community is all about. The government, on the other hand, has shown the opposite: incompetence, dithering, delay, and bad mistakes. If they'd listened to the World Health Organization in January, which they should have done, if they'd tested when they could have done, if they'd given the support when they should have done to local authorities and the NHS, we'd be in a very different situation. And as we now go into a new phase on this, the numbers of people that are terrified of losing their job, terrified they'll have no income, can't live on 3/4 of minimum wage, can't live on 3/4 of a 0 hours contract that doesn't pay them anything, and can't survive on statutory sick pay. Does Boris Johnson understand this? The Tories understand this? I absolutely think not. And globally, the same story. The poorest people in the poorest places have suffered the most. So when we come out of this corona crisis, let's not go back to the old ways. Let's not go back to that poverty, that inequality, and that injustice. Let's do things very, very differently. That means a green industrial revolution. It means good jobs, creating good, clean, green energy, green products. It means better biodiversity. It means a different approach to our environment, to live with the environment rather than destroy the environment. This isn't against economic growth. It's not against economic well-being. It's part of it. Living sustainably where you care for everybody. Hence the need for a minimum income guarantee and all the things that we said about social justice in our manifesto. And it's about education. It's about education for our young people. An end to the exam factory mentality, an end to the idea that children should go through school tested within an inch of their life and frightened at the end of every term of what the next test is going to produce. Instead, bring out the best in our children, nurture and value all our children, give space to their creativity, which is why I was so proud of the Pupil Arts Premium that I was determined to bring in. But also, it's Black History Month. October is Black History Month. And we have a Secretary of State who thinks we shouldn't be discussing colonial history. We shouldn't be teaching colonial history. I beg to differ. I beg to differ. We defeat racism in our society when we understand the origins of it, when we understand the mentality of racial superiority that has been there in so many aspects of European culture and European teaching. And we understand the need for a different approach to unlock people's imagination, and also to teach the history of our people, to teach the history of our unions, of our popular movements. Every social advance that Britain has ever had came about because working class people got together and demanded it. They're the ones that built our National Health Service. They're the ones that built the principle of a social security system. They're the ones that built the principle of council housing and so much that goes with it. So I'm very proud to support all the people that are on this call this evening. And I want to see us as a party proud internationally for an international policy based on peace, justice, and human rights. Peace, justice, and human rights. I opposed the Iraq War. I opposed the Iraq War because I believed that it was illegal, and what I thought was it would unleash the terrorism, the wars, and the refugees of tomorrow. Sadly, we were not wrong on any of those calculations. The millions around the world who are refugees now are refugees because of human rights abuse, because of environmental disaster, because of economic disaster, and because of wars that seem to know no end. We have to have a different narrative. And the idea that we have a Home Secretary in a government that's talking about throwing nets over dinghies in the Channel, that's using military camps to put refugees in, dumping them in places with no support whatsoever. They are human beings. The novelists of the next century will be getting Booker Prizes for describing how refugees survived in modern Europe and managed to make their way to a country that was prepared to house them and welcome them. Sadly, I don't want to wait for the books of 100 years' time, because I won't be around then, none of us will. I want that justice, that humanity to be present now for people all around the world. This isn't utopian pipe dreams. This is what serious politics, serious socialists, and serious humanity is about. So today we're a whiff of what this Tory government's about, trying to pass the covert intelligence bill through Parliament. I voted against it because I'm not prepared to put on the statute book something that condones illegal activities, that criminalizes trade unionists, that attacks people who try to improve our natural world and our environment. And so we've got big struggles. Every generation has big struggles, but you only achieve change by doing things together. And I was very touched by the way that Howard put his comments about bringing constituency parties and trade unions together, bringing communities together, because at the end of the day, they're facing the same thing. We defeat racism by bringing people together. The alternative to the left not succeeding in politics is the far right raising their fearful, horrible, ugly head all over the place. So let's be strong and let's support our candidates in this election. I thank Anne for what she said and the way she put it. Those great women that founded trade unions, those great women that stood up for housing and so much else. The Mary Barber law in Scotland, where they stood up for private renters. And I have huge admiration for those women that stood up for the right to vote, particularly Sylvia Pankhurst, who spent an inordinate amount of time in my constituency. I love people living in my constituency, but not in the former HMP Holloway, because they stood up for the right of women to vote. Those are the people that paved the way for a better democracy within our society, which we haven't fully achieved yet. So when you come to vote, vote for our team of candidates. But to make sure your vote is wisely used, you need to go on a website called futureweneed.com, put in your postcode, and it will tell you the ideal order in which to place the candidates 1 to 6. I've done it already for myself, so I know exactly what I've got to do. I've typed my postcode in, and I am very proud to support our team tonight. But above all, it's about our movement, our party, our policies, and building a society that's fit for the next generation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. Don't go anywhere just right now. I just want to tell you that
I've got nowhere else to go. I'm at home.
You know, every time
this is my study where I work all the time.
You know, every time you speak, there's just like a deluge of love and solidarity, and people just in our movement and on the left just have a huge fondness for you, Jeremy. I know you're like really humble and all that, but just let it in. You receive so much hate, so much pressure, so much venom from lots of people in your time as leader for daring to say that things could be different. But just to let you know, so much love for you tonight, Jeremy.
Laura, thanks for that. But real pressure is when you can't feed your kids. Real pressure is when you haven't got a home. That's what we've got to change. Pressure on politicians, so what? So the Daily Mail doesn't like me. That's on the record.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. Here's just a few closing comments, instructions, if you like. So thank you so much to Nikki and Sam, as Jeremy said, for interpreting for us this evening. Thank you so much to the CLGA volunteers who have helped with the Zoom and the Facebook. It might look like we just sit here, but there's so much whizzing on in the background that other people are organising. So thank you so much. Also, tomorrow is Wear Red Day. So you know the excellent charity, the anti-racism charity, Show Racism the Red Card. They have an initiative every year on the 16th of October where you wear an item of red, not just for socialism, but against racism. And then if you have got anything, make a small donation or a large donation if you've got spare money to their charity to do the really important anti-racism education work that they do. So thank you for attending tonight. I think the message is pretty clear. We want you to vote for the Grassroots Voice team. We also strongly advise that you vote for Mick as the Welsh rep, for Lara and for Ellen in both the youth rep and the disabled rep seat, and that you use that postcode finder to be disciplined about the way that you vote in the region that you are in, because we're in this new complicated voting system, but we have to be disciplined to get as many people as possible on that NEC. The NEC is not a glamorous role to take, but it is so important. It is the governing body of our party. It makes really important decisions about you, about members, and about the conduct of the party, about the running of this huge political party. And you can be assured our team will put democracy, the members, and socialism first. Friends, you are not alone in this. There is a network of friends and comrades out there who want a different world just like you. We have to stick together now like never before, and we have to get organised for that different world. Good evening, and thanks so much.